I was Lauren Martinez, a 30-year-old fashion designer. The irony cut like a perfectly tailored seam. I'd built a brand from nothing, proving my worth. I'd achieved everything they said was impossible. My reward? A cruel twist of fate, a quiet act of betrayal. They had secretly sold the lakehouse. The home my grandfather left me, my sanctuary. The very thing meant to be mine, untouched by their favoritism. It was sacrificed for my sister's lavish wedding, my most precious gift, for the most public display of their endless devotion to her. The truth hit me like a physical blow. Panic seized me. I had to see it, had to prove it wasn't real. I drove to the lakehouse, my hands shaking on the wheel. This was my sanctuary, my refuge, the last piece of my grandfather I had left. It couldn't be gone. In its place, a cruel reality was moving in, piece by piece. What would I do now that my refuge was gone? On the surface, we looked like a perfectly normal family. A house in the suburbs, annual vacations, smiling faces and family photos. But beneath the surface, there was a quiet, suffocating truth. My sister, Emily, was the sun. My parents' world revolved around her. She was the golden child, the star of every show. Everything Emily did was a monumental achievement. A new car for graduating high school, a lavish party for a minor promotion. She was celebrated for simply existing. It wasn't just favoritism, it was an obsession. Their attention was a constant spotlight, and she was always basking in its glow. And me? I was the background. The responsible one. The one who was supposed to be independent, to take care of herself. My achievements were met with a quick nod, that's nice. My parents weren't cruel, just absent. They didn't have to neglect me because they had already decided I didn't need them. I was the forgotten one, the shadow in the family photos. The only person who truly saw me was my grandfather, Walter. He saw through the facade and understood my quiet struggle. He didn't shower me with praise or money. He gave me something much more valuable, his time, his attention, and a profound sense of belonging. He taught me my worth wasn't a performance for others. He was my one true ally. In our family, I had a specific role. I was the responsible one, the independent one. Those were the nice words they used to describe me. But what they really meant was, she doesn't need us. We don't have to worry about her. It was a convenient label that allowed them to direct all their attention, time, and money to Emily without feeling any guilt. My independence wasn't a choice, it was a consequence. When I needed money for school textbooks, they said I was old enough to get a part-time job. When I needed a car to drive to college, they told me to use the bus. They expected me to understand that Emily's new car was a necessity because her needs were always more important. Even my achievements were minimized. I got into a top design school on a scholarship, and my parents simply nodded, saying, "Well, of course, you're so responsible." When Emily got a mediocre grade, she was showered with praise and gifts for trying her best. My success was a given, an expectation. Her mediocrity was a celebrated effort. Their favoritism was so blatant, it was almost a family joke. They never tried to hide it. I was just supposed to accept it, to always be the bigger person. They never saw the quiet struggle, the loneliness. They never had to. They were so focused on propping Emily up, they didn't notice I was holding myself up, all on my own. I wasn't part of the family dynamic, I was just a convenient support beam. The lake house was the only place I ever felt truly seen. While my parents focused on Emily's cheerleading, I was at the lake, sketching blueprints in a tattered notebook. The rhythmic lapping of the water was my soundtrack. This wasn't just a building, it was my sanctuary. A refuge from a world where I was always on the outside. My grandfather knew it. He saw my passion and nurtured it. He'd teach me how to whittle wood, showing me how to turn something raw into something beautiful. We would walk the property, and he'd point out every detail, every angle. He said this house had a soul, and that my creativity was a part of it. He was teaching me to build, to dream, to belong. That's why the lake house was more than a gift. It was a promise. The most precious gift he could give me, because it was a tangible symbol of his faith in me. The faith my parents never had. It was the one piece of my life I knew was truly mine. A foundation of hope, built from a profound sense of belonging. A foundation they had now stolen. The air in the lawyer's office was thick with expectation. My parents and Emily sat stiffly, their faces a mixture of self-satisfaction and greed. They assumed Grandpa's assets would be split evenly, with the lion's share going to Emily. They barely acknowledged my presence. I was just there as a formality. But as the lawyer's voice droned on, he came to the final, most valuable piece of the will. To my granddaughter, Lauren Martinez, he read, "I leave the lake house, its property, and all its contents." The room went silent. The atmosphere shifted. It was as if someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the room. My parents' faces fell. It wasn't disappointment, it was outrage. My father cleared his throat and muttered, "A little irresponsible, isn't it? Giving a valuable property to someone so flighty." My mother quickly added, "We'll have to discuss the best way to manage it, Lauren. It's too big a burden for you to handle alone." But Emily's reaction was the sharpest. She leaned in, her voice dripping with venom. "A house? From Grandpa? Oh, that's just perfect. I suppose he knew it would be the only thing you'd ever get. A dusty old cabin instead of a real inheritance." Her words were a slap in the face. She saw my gift as her loss. The resentment was tangible. While Emily was given a brand new car for graduation, I was busy saving up for bus fare. While she was on lavish vacations, I was working at a coffee shop. I was always working, always saving, always proving my worth. Not just to myself, but to a family that never seemed to notice. Every dollar I earned was a statement. The worst part wasn't the lack of money. It was the constant comparison. My parents would openly talk about how Emily's needs were a top priority. I had to understand that her expensive wardrobe and endless parties came before my college textbooks. I learned early on that my needs were an inconvenience, not a priority. My dreams were a burden. So I worked harder. I earned my way into a top design school. I started my own business. Every achievement was a quiet rebellion. It was my way of saying, "I don't need your help. I don't need your approval. I can do this on my own." I was building a life they couldn't control, a life they couldn't give away. The lake house was the ultimate symbol of that independence. The one thing they couldn't minimize, couldn't give away, or so I thought. They were so used to using my possessions to fund Emily's life, they didn't see the lake house as a home. They saw it as another resource to be taken, another sacrifice for me to understand. But I was done understanding. The game was over. The pattern never stopped. Even as an adult, with my own career and my own life, my milestones were still measured against Emily's needs. When I got my first big contract, a client I chased for years, I called my parents, beaming. I was so proud. This wasn't a small thing. It was a victory I had earned completely on my own. But before I could even finish telling them the details, my mom cut me off. "Oh, that's nice, honey. Listen, Emily really needs a new car. She's been struggling." The conversation immediately shifted from my celebration to her crisis. My success was just a convenient resource, a problem-solving tool for Emily. My victory was her salvation. It happened again and again. I won a prestigious design award, and they talked about how it was a blessing because Emily needed money to pay for her daughter's private school tuition. They always framed it as my responsibility. "You're the independent one, Lauren. You can handle this." I was a backup plan, a silent, uncomplaining ATM. I was the responsible one, the logical one, the one who didn't cause problems. And that meant my needs, my feelings, my successes, they were all negotiable, all disposable. They saw my life as a pool of resources for Emily. And when it came to the lake house, the one thing I thought was truly mine, they simply saw it as the biggest resource of all. A jackpot to be cashed in. My world was a blur of flashing cameras and champagne toasts. My latest collection had been a hit. Everyone was there, my models, my team, industry critics. This was my moment. A victory I had earned completely on my own terms. It felt like a world away from the family drama, a sanctuary of my own making. But a single phone call was about to shatter that peace. As I stepped outside to take a breath, my phone rang. The name on the screen made me pause. Susan Jones. She was an elderly fabric supplier I'd worked with for years. She was a kind, quiet woman. What would she be calling me for, at this hour, on a Saturday night? Her voice was a shaky whisper. "Lauren, is that you? I just wanted to double-check something. I heard from a client that your lake house, well, that it's for sale. I thought maybe I misheard. It's such a beautiful place. I can't believe it's for sale." My heart sank. I told her it wasn't true. The house wasn't for sale. Susan hesitated. "Oh, really? That's strange. Because the client said your parents told them it was a private sale to help pay for Emily's wedding. He said they even showed him the paperwork." That's why I was calling. I couldn't believe it. I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. The noise of the party faded away. A private sale? My parents? To pay for Emily's wedding? My mind reeled. It couldn't be true. But her words were too specific. They had the signature of a truth I was afraid to face. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate act. My first reaction was to call my parents to demand answers. But a small voice in my head, the voice of a lifetime of being betrayed, told me to stop. "Don't let them gaslight you," it whispered. "Don't give them a chance to lie." I knew I had to get to the lake house. Right now. I had to see it with my own eyes. I had to prove to myself what they had done. I drove to the lake house in a cold sweat. My mind was screaming it's a mistake. But my gut knew the truth. My heart was pounding, the old gravel road a blur. This couldn't be real. The last time I was here, it was for a family barbecue. Now I was here to face a betrayal that was both absurd and terrifyingly real. As I turned into the driveway, I saw the massive moving truck. The back was open, and a man was carrying out a familiar rocking chair. The one Grandpa Walter used to sit in. The one my parents had no right to sell. My vision tunneled. The sound of the birds, the rustling leaves, it all disappeared. All I could hear was the scraping of my furniture. I stumbled out of the car, my legs shaking. I had to touch something, anything, to ground myself. I grabbed the arm of the rocking chair. The mover looked at me confused. My voice was a choked whisper. What are you doing here?" He seemed startled. "We're moving in, ma'am. This is our new home." A kind-looking couple approached me, their smiles quickly fading as they saw my face. The man, in his late 50s, asked, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" I looked at them, my mind unable to process the cruelty. "This is my home," I said, my voice barely audible. "No, my dear," the woman replied, her face a mask of confusion. "We bought it. From your parents. The Martinezes," he went on, oblivious to my pain. "They were so wonderful. Said it was a private sale. A gift for Emily, for her big wedding. They told us you had given your blessing, that you were happy to help." The words were like daggers. They didn't just sell my home, they sold a fake story of my generosity. They were using my name, my reputation, to cover their lies. The betrayal was complete. My shock turned to an icy, burning rage. They had gone too far. The rage was a cold, quiet thing. It had replaced the shock, leaving me with a clear head and a single purpose. I needed proof. I needed to know exactly what they had done. I drove directly to my friend Olivia's office. She was a brilliant lawyer, all logic and reason. She was the one person who could look at this without the emotional baggage. I laid out the entire story, from my grandfather's will to my parents' blatant favoritism. I explained how the buyers told me my parents had a notarized power of attorney. Olivia listened silently, her face a professional mask. She didn't interrupt. She just took a stack of papers from me and started to examine them, page by page. The word hit me like a physical blow. They didn't just sell the house. They impersonated me. They stole my very identity, my legal voice. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a cold, calculated act of malice. They had meticulously planned this, using fake paperwork to circumvent my rights. They were so confident that I would understand that they took every measure to ensure their lies were airtight. They thought I would never find out. They underestimated me. Olivia laid out our options. She said the case was airtight. The forgery was a smoking gun. We could sue for fraud, restitution, and a return of the property. The buyers were innocent, and they would be fully reimbursed. The legal system, for once, was on my side. All the years of being undermined, of being dismissed, it all came down to this moment. This was my fight now, my battle. The forged signature was a smoking gun. Olivia explained the legal reality to me in a calm, clear voice. Your parents had no legal right to sell the property, she said. A will grants you sole ownership. The forged power of attorney is a criminal offense, a clear case of fraud. Your case is airtight, Lauren. The law is on your side. We had multiple legal avenues. We could file an immediate lawsuit, halt the sale, and force the buyers to vacate. We could freeze the funds from the sale and seize the money. It was all so simple. But even as Olivia spoke, my mind was running in a different direction. I wanted to hurt them, to expose them, to ruin the very thing they stole my home for. Olivia read my face. I know what you're thinking, she said, her voice softer now. But if we file suit now, it'll be a mess. A public, ugly mess. It would put a dark cloud over Emily's wedding. They would spin the story. They would tell everyone that you, the independent daughter, tried to ruin your sister's big day. They would turn you into the villain. Her words were a cold splash of reality. She was right. They had already set the stage for this. They had already told people I understood and was happy to help. Exposing them now would be a PR disaster. It would fit their narrative perfectly. But waiting gave me power. It gave me control. It gave me the upper hand. They had the wedding, but I had the truth. I told Olivia my decision. We wait, I said, my voice steady. We wait until after the wedding. We let them have their perfect day. We let them bask in the glory of their generosity. We let them think they got away with it. We let them get comfortable. Olivia smiled. It was a cold, professional smile, but I understood it. My vengeance wouldn't be a sudden, messy storm. It would be a slow, surgical strike. I would let them build their castle of lies, and then, after the confetti had settled and the guests had gone home, I would pull the first block out. Then another, and another. This wasn't about being right. It was about being powerful. About reclaiming my story. About making them face the truth I was now holding in my hands. The forged signature was a profound betrayal, but it was also a twisted form of liberation. For so long, I had tried to earn my family's approval, to prove I was worthy of their love. I was always the good one, the responsible one. But this act of fraud, this complete disregard for my identity, it freed me from the need to be anything for them. They had finally made their choice clear. My success as a fashion designer had always been my own, a private victory. I'd built a brand from nothing, proving to myself that I was worthy, even if my parents didn't care. Now that success felt different. It wasn't just a career, it was a weapon. Every carefully tailored seam, every meticulously planned collection, it was training for what I was about to do. My design process is all about strategy. You don't just put things together and hope for the best. You meticulously plan every detail. You identify the weaknesses. You choose the right materials. You execute with precision. This legal battle, this act of revenge, it was just another design project. A project with a perfect, elegant solution. And the most elegant solution was to use their own narrative against them. They wanted to make this about Emily's happiness, about their generosity. They wanted to look like the good guys, sacrificing a valuable asset for their daughter's big day. I would let them. I would play the role of the quiet, understanding daughter. I would attend Emily's wedding. I would smile. I would congratulate her. But I wouldn't just be a guest. I would be an observer. I would watch them basking in the glow of their deception. I would watch Emily, the golden child, get everything she ever wanted. I would see the final act of a play they'd been performing my entire life. And then, when the curtain fell, I would expose them. Not with a public scene at the wedding, but with a quiet, devastating legal action. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about justice. It was about taking back what was rightfully mine. Not just the lake house, but my identity, my worth, my voice. They thought they could erase me from the equation, but they couldn't. They just made me stronger. They just made me a better strategist. They just gave me a reason to fight. They will have their perfect day. They will smile for the cameras, and they will tell everyone what a generous and understanding person I am. They will feel safe. They will feel like they won. They will feel like they got away with it. And then, the day after the wedding, when they least expect it, I will strike. The wedding was a masterpiece of opulence. A grand ballroom filled with white roses, crystal chandeliers, and a string quartet playing a soft melody. Emily, my sister, was a vision in her designer dress. She was the princess, the star of a show that had been meticulously choreographed. Every detail, from the flowers to the food, was a testament to my parents' generosity. I moved through the crowd, a silent ghost in a room full of happy people. I smiled, I made small talk, I gave Emily a hug. I played my part. But inside, I was a stranger. I was an anthropologist studying a strange tribe. I was just there to witness the final act of their deception, to see them at their most vulnerable moment. My parents were at the center of it all, basking in the glow of their triumph. My father was telling a story, laughing loudly. My mother was gesturing to the flowers, as if to say, "Look what we did for our daughter." They were so comfortable in their lies, so confident that I would be a quiet participant, the good daughter who would never cause a scene. An old family friend came up to me, a sweet woman named Mrs. Davis. "Oh, Lauren," she said, her voice full of warmth, "your parents told me how you gave up the lake house so Emily could have this beautiful wedding. It's just so selfless of you. A true act of sisterly love." The words were a physical blow. The lie was not just for them, it was a public declaration of my self-sacrifice. I wanted to scream, to tell her the truth, but I held it in. This wasn't the time. This was their moment, their last moment of peace. I was a puppet master now, and I had to be patient. I had to let them get comfortable in their delusion. I had to let them build their beautiful, fragile castle of lies, knowing I was holding a wrecking ball. Emily gave a toast, her voice full of emotion. "I want to thank my amazing parents," she said, "for making all of this possible. This wedding is a dream come true." Her words were like acid. This wasn't a dream come true, it was a nightmare for me. And every one of these people, smiling and clapping, were part of the audience. They had no idea they were about to be spectators to a very different kind of show. The party's joyous noise was a distant hum now. I spotted Olivia across the room, her serious expression a beacon in the sea of smiling faces. She gave me a small, knowing nod. We didn't need to say a word. We were two spies in enemy territory, and we knew the mission was a go. I moved toward her, slipping away from my family's performance. We met in a quiet alcove by a marble column. She didn't ask me how I was enjoying the wedding. There was no need. She just looked at me and said, "Everything is in place. The documents are ready. The lawsuit is filed, but not yet served. We can do it whenever you give the word." Her voice was calm and professional, a perfect counterpoint to the emotional storm inside me. I looked out at my family, laughing and dancing. My parents were talking to a couple, probably bragging about the wedding expenses. I felt an icy resolve settle in my stomach. The anger was still there, but it had been sharpened into a tool. The day after the wedding, I whispered, "We do it the day after the wedding. They'll be exhausted, comfortable, and celebrating. That's when we strike." Olivia nodded, a hint of a smile on her face. The element of surprise is our best weapon. They have no idea what's coming. They think they've won. They think you'll let it slide. They've already told the entire family that you're the good daughter who selflessly gave up her inheritance. This is our chance to rewrite the script. She was more than a lawyer. She was my conscience, my strategic partner. She didn't just understand the law, she understood the emotional game. She knew that the most devastating revenge wasn't about money. It was about exposing their true character. It was about stripping away their comfortable lies and forcing them to face the consequences in front of everyone they had lied to. The night was a whirlwind of false smiles and empty promises. As the party wound down, I watched my family say their goodbyes. My parents looked exhausted but triumphant. They had done it. They had thrown their daughter a perfect, extravagant wedding, a testament to their love. They were the heroes of their own story, and they had no idea I was about to rewrite it. I slipped away from the party unnoticed. I didn't say goodbye. There was nothing left to say. I drove home through the quiet streets, the silence a welcome relief from the night's noise. The anger I felt had a new edge. It wasn't raw and chaotic anymore. It was cold and precise. It was a tool, ready to be used. I was no longer a victim. I was a strategist. The next morning, I woke up early. The house was silent, a stark contrast to the previous night's chaos. My parents and Emily were probably still sleeping, dreaming of their perfect, expensive wedding. They were comfortable. They felt safe. They felt like they had gotten away with it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I made a cup of coffee, my hands steady. There was no shaking, no second guessing. I was a machine now, a perfectly calibrated instrument of justice. Olivia's words echoed in my mind. The day after the wedding, they'll be exhausted, comfortable, and celebrating. That's when we strike. I was ready. I was completely, utterly ready. I put on a professional dress, a powerful piece from my own collection. It was a suit of armor. I had the legal documents in a manila folder, the forged power of attorney, the will, and Olivia's carefully prepared lawsuit. Every piece of paper was a nail in their coffin, every signature a lie I was about to expose. I drove to the office of the notary public who had stamped the forged document. I had an appointment with him. He was the first domino. He was a small player in their game, but a crucial one. I would make him talk. I would make him tell me who ordered this. I would make him face the legal consequences of his actions. And then I would come for them. The morning after the wedding was a portrait of serenity. My parents were sitting in the sunroom sipping coffee, a comfortable silence between them. They were reminiscing, smiling about the beautiful ceremony and how perfect everything was. They looked completely at peace. The calm before the storm. I walked into the room and the silence broke. My father looked up, surprised. "Lauren, you didn't stay the night?" My mother's smile was a little strained. "We thought you'd want to be part of the post-wedding brunch." They were still playing their roles. "I'm not here for brunch," I said, my voice flat, professional. "I'm here to talk about the lakehouse and the private sale." The smile on my father's face evaporated. "Lauren, what are you talking about? We told you we sold it. You seem to be fine with it." My mother joined in, her voice suddenly sharp. "Don't ruin this. We had a beautiful wedding. Don't cause problems now." They were back in their familiar territory, trying to blame me for their own decisions. I didn't react to their deflection. I just looked at them, my eyes cold. The will stated that the property belonged to me and me alone. It was not yours to sell. And you both knew that. Yet you went ahead anyway. You used my property to pay for a wedding that you couldn't afford. It was a clear violation of my rights. But that wasn't the worst part. My father scoffed. What more could there be, Lauren? You're exaggerating. We made a mistake, maybe, but we did it for your sister. This is for the family. His voice was patronizing, trying to make me feel small. I just shook my head. No, I said. This was for Emily. And you didn't make a mistake. You committed a crime. I pulled the manila folder from my bag and laid the documents on the table. The legal papers, the will, and the forged power of attorney. My parents' eyes widened as they saw the papers. My mother's face went white. What is this? She stammered. This is the evidence, I said. The evidence of a crime you thought you could get away with. The buyers had this document, I said, pointing to the forged power of attorney. It gives you the legal right to sell the property. It has a notary stamp and a forged signature. My signature. You didn't just sell my home, you pretended to be me. That's not a mistake. That is fraud. That is a criminal act. The word hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. They had no response. They were cornered. Just then, Emily walked in, a happy, relaxed smile on her face. Hey guys, what's going on? The smile vanished as she saw the look on our faces and the papers on the table. She looked from my parents to me, confused. What's happening? She asked, her voice small. My mother, panicked, tried to intervene. Nothing, honey. Your sister is just being dramatic. I looked at Emily, my voice clear and steady. Emily, your wedding was beautiful. Truly. But it was paid for with stolen money. Your perfect wedding was a house of cards built on fraud. And I'm here to tear it down. Emily's face crumpled. She looked at her parents, her eyes full of tears. Mom? Dad? Is this true? Is this all? Is this a lie? My parents looked at each other, unable to meet her gaze. The silence was their confession. The lie, which they had so carefully constructed, was finally exposed in front of the person they had done it all for. It was a perfect, beautiful disaster. My father finally spoke, his voice weak. Lauren, how could you do this? How could you ruin your sister's happiness? We did this for her. You're so cruel. I just looked at him, a cold smile on my face. No, Dad, I said. I didn't ruin her happiness. You did. You chose money over me. You chose to commit a crime over telling the truth. You chose to use my home, my family's legacy, to buy her a fantasy. You did this to yourselves. The shouting was over. The room was heavy with silence, a silence broken only by Emily's quiet sobs. My parents sat motionless, their faces a mixture of disbelief and defeat. The perfect, happy family facade had crumbled in an instant, revealing the ugly truth underneath. They looked at me now, not with anger, but with a dawning fear. They finally understood. I felt no joy, no rush of victory, just a cold, final sense of purpose. I had done what was necessary. I looked at them, not as a daughter, but as a witness to a crime. This is not a negotiation, I said, my voice calm. This is a statement of fact. The forged power of attorney is an open and shut case. You will be sued for fraud. I continued, my voice steady, laying out the legal reality. The money from the sale will be returned to the buyers. That means all the funds you use for this wedding will have to be repaid. You will be left with nothing. No lake house, no money, just a mountain of legal fees and a lot of explaining to do. The silence in the room was deafening. My father finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. But the wedding, he looked at me as if expecting me to offer a way out. I just shook my head. This wedding was a monument to your lies. You chose this, Dad. You chose to value a perfect day for one daughter over the home of the other. You chose this path, and now you have to walk it. There was no pity in my voice. Only cold, hard truth. The silence that followed my words was a victory in itself. My parents' attempts at emotional manipulation had failed. Their lies had been exposed, and their power over me was gone. I looked at them one last time, not with anger, but with a quiet sense of finality. I had nothing more to say, nothing left to prove. I turned to walk away, my heart finally at peace. My mother's voice, small and broken, stopped me at the door. "Lauren, please, don't do this. We're your family. We love you. How could you ruin us like this?" It was their last resort. The same manipulation they'd used on me my whole life. The last, desperate attempt to hold on to their victim. But it had no effect on me now. I didn't turn around. I spoke to the door, my voice calm. "If you truly loved me, you wouldn't have done this. If you valued me, you wouldn't have committed a crime to give Emily a wedding she couldn't afford. You didn't do this for love. You did this for yourselves, for your reputation, and for your perfect, golden child." The words were not shouted. They were simply a statement of fact. My voice held no anger. It held no sadness. It held only a profound sense of finality. I was no longer their daughter, bound by blood and manipulation. I was Lauren, a woman who had built her own life, who had found her own worth, and who was now taking back what was rightfully hers. Not just the physical property, but the emotional freedom, the freedom they had tried so hard to steal. I walked out the front door and closed it behind me. The click of the lock was a symphony. I felt the weight of years of resentment lift from my shoulders. The air felt cleaner. The sun felt warmer. The world felt bigger. My family had thought that by taking my home they were taking my foundation. But they were wrong. My foundation wasn't the lake house. It was me. The drive to my apartment was quiet. There was no rage, no tears, just a quiet sense of triumph. I had done what I set out to do. Not for revenge, but for justice. Not to hurt them, but to heal myself. I pulled up to my building, my own space, a home I had built for myself, on my own terms. This was my true inheritance, my independence. I walked into my apartment. It was filled with my designs, my art, my furniture. It was a reflection of me, a testament to the life I had built. I sat down on my couch, a sense of profound peace washing over me. They had a perfect wedding. They had their public victory. But I had my truth. I had my freedom. And I had my peace. The legal process was in motion. The lawsuit for fraud, the restitution of funds, the criminal investigation into the forged signature. My vengeance was now in the hands of the law. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. The weight of their lies, their expectations, their manipulation, it was all gone. My victory wasn't just about winning a lawsuit, it was about reclaiming my life. My phone buzzed constantly for days. My mother tried to call, my father sent long, emotional texts. Emily reached out, pleading for me to forgive them. Their new narrative was that I was cruel, that I was ruining them for no reason. They were trying to pull me back into the cycle, to make me feel guilty. But their manipulation had lost its power. I didn't answer. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I had delivered the truth. My part was over. I was no longer an emotional pawn in their game. I was a person with a life to live, a business to run, and a future to build. I deleted their numbers from my phone. I blocked them on social media. This wasn't about hate. It was about survival. It was about setting a boundary that should have been there my entire life. The lake house was a beautiful memory, but it was just that, a memory. My true inheritance wasn't a property. It was the ability to stand up for myself, to say no to manipulation, to walk away from a family that had used me and lied to me. The most powerful act of revenge isn't destroying others, it's building yourself back up, stronger, smarter, and forever free. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a forged signature and a stolen house. This was a story about the complex, often toxic bonds of family. It was about what happens when the people who are supposed to protect you are the very ones who hurt you the most. It's about the truth you have to accept, even when it shatters your entire world. My parents' betrayal wasn't just about the money. It was about their complete and utter disregard for my feelings, my worth, and my identity. It was the final, devastating confirmation that I had always been the second choice, that my happiness was less important than a perfect wedding photo. They didn't just take a house, they tried to erase a part of me. And so, my revenge was never about destroying them. It was about rebuilding myself. It was about forcing them to face the consequences of their actions, not with a shout or a scream, but with the cold, hard reality of the law. I made them see what they had done, not just to me, but to their own lives and to their perfect, fragile family. They got their perfect wedding. They got their beautiful photos, but they lost something far more valuable. They lost their honor. They lost their reputation. They lost their ability to lie and get away with it. And in the end, they lost me, not because I chose to leave, but because they forced me to. The true lesson of this story isn't about getting even. It's about self-worth. It's about knowing your value and having the courage to fight for it. It's about understanding that you don't have to be a pawn in someone else's game. You can be the queen. You can change the rules. You can rebuild your board, and you can win on your own terms. My name is Lauren Martinez. They took my home, but they couldn't take my power. They took my inheritance, but they couldn't take my independence. They tried to break me, but they only made me stronger. And this is my final statement. The legal battle lasted for months. The process was messy, emotional, and long. My parents tried every trick in the book. They cried, they lied, they tried to get the public notary to change his story. But the evidence was too strong. They were caught. They had to face the consequences, not just legally, but financially. The court ruled in my favor. My parents were ordered to pay back every cent of the fraudulent sale. To do that, they had to sell the beautiful, expensive wedding gifts. They had to sell their own cars. The irony was poetic. The very things they used to build their fake life were the things they had to tear down to pay for their crime. My life, on the other hand, was flourishing. The truth set me free, not just from my family's lies, but from my own self-doubt. With the weight of their manipulation gone, my business exploded. My designs were more creative. My mind was clearer. I was able to build something truly mine, something no one could ever take away from me. I rebuilt my friendships too. My relationship with Olivia became even stronger. She was more than just a lawyer. She was my steadfast ally. My new life was filled with people who valued me for who I was, not for what they could get from me. This was the true inheritance I had won, not money, but a support system built on honesty. I haven't spoken to my family since that day. I don't feel anger anymore, just a profound sense of distance. I've accepted that the family I thought I had was just a fantasy. They had a choice, and they chose money over me. They chose their perfect public image over our private bond. The pain is a part of my story, but it no longer defines me. The true lesson of a revenge story isn't about the revenge itself. It's about the journey to get there. It's about finding the courage to fight for what's right, even when it means fighting the people you love. It's about knowing your value and having the strength to demand it. The lake house was the symbol of my fight, but my peace is the real victory. They might have taken my inheritance, but they couldn't take my power. They might have broken my trust, but they couldn't break my spirit. They might have tried to ruin me, but they only made me stronger. I am no longer a victim. I am a survivor. I am a victor. And this is my peaceful ending. The legal battle was over, but the emotional one was just beginning. My family's last attempt at manipulation was to try and pull me back in. They sent letters filled with apologies and pleas. They spoke of reconciliation and moving past this. But I knew better. Their remorse wasn't real. It was a strategy to regain control, to get me to drop the charges. I didn't respond. I had to create an honest distance, a physical and emotional boundary that they could never cross again. I changed my number. I moved apartments. I needed a fresh start, a life free from their constant toxicity. This wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of self-preservation. It was a choice to protect my peace. I realized that the family I had always wanted was never going to exist. It was an illusion. The real family was the one I was building now. My new friends who celebrated my victories. My supportive colleagues who admired my work. They were the ones who saw me for who I truly was. They were my true support system. The irony was not lost on me. My parents had sacrificed my legacy for a perfect 2-day event. And in doing so, they had given me something far more valuable, my freedom. They had taken my house, but they had given me the courage to build a life on my own terms. My success was no longer a validation I sought from them. It was a reflection of my own strength. I think about the lakehouse sometimes. The sunsets. The quiet mornings. It's a beautiful memory. But it's just a memory. My home isn't a place anymore. It's a feeling. It's the peace I feel when I wake up in the morning. It's the security I feel when I know my boundaries are respected. It's the joy I feel when I'm living my life my way. They took everything they could from me, my home, my inheritance, my trust, but they couldn't take my spirit. They couldn't take my will. They might have won the first battle, but I won the war. A war for my own soul. I am not a victim of a family revenge story. I am the hero of my own life. And this is my honest, peaceful ending. After everything, I had to redefine what family meant. For so long, I had believed it was defined by blood, by shared history, by a last name. I had carried the burden of trying to belong to a group that never truly accepted me. But I've learned that's a lie. Family isn't a group you're born into. It's a group you choose to build. My family now consists of people who see me, who hear me, and who love me for who I am. My friends, my colleagues, my support system, they are the ones who cheer for my successes and stand by me in my struggles. They are the ones who have proven through their actions that they value me. This is the new foundation of my life. Stronger and built on honesty. The lake house was never really mine, not in the way that matters. It was a physical symbol of a promise that was never kept. My true inheritance isn't a property, it's the sense of peace I have now. The freedom to live a life without manipulation. The joy of building something from nothing on my own terms. That is a legacy my parents could never give me. My parents tried to buy a perfect life with a stolen house. But a perfect life isn't for sale. It's built on trust, on love, on honesty, and on respect. They took everything they could from me, but in doing so they gave me the most valuable lesson of my life. They taught me to stand up for myself, to reclaim my voice, to fight for my right to exist. This story isn't about the dramatic climax. It's not about the lawsuit. It's about the ending. An ending where the victim isn't a victim anymore. An ending where I am not defined by what my family did to me, but by what I did for myself. I am a survivor. I am a victor. And I am finally, truly free. Months passed. The legal battle became a memory, a story I no longer needed to tell. My focus was on my work. My creativity, once stifled by family drama, now flowed freely. I worked harder than ever, pouring every ounce of my passion into my designs. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about my future. This was about building a legacy of my own. The day came. My first major solo gallery opening. The room was filled with people, not forced relatives and fake friends, but real clients, respected critics, and my true support system. They were there for me, for my talent, for my hard work. My designs, once just a hobby, were now a testament to my resilience. Each piece told a story of my journey. Each stitch was a thread of my strength. I saw a few familiar faces, old acquaintances, distant relatives who had once been close to my family. They looked at me with a strange mixture of awe and pity. They knew the story. They knew about the house, the lawsuit, the public downfall of my parents. But they also saw me standing there, triumphant. They saw the woman who had lost a home, but had won a kingdom. This was my real revenge, not the lawsuit, not the financial ruin, but this was the most powerful statement I could ever make. My parents had built a facade of perfection with my stolen inheritance for a single, fleeting moment. But I had built a real, tangible life of success with nothing but my own courage and talent. Their victory was a lie. My victory was the truth. As I stood there, surrounded by the people who truly loved and supported me, I realized that I didn't need a family defined by blood. I didn't need a home defined by a will. My family was right here. My home was within me. And my happiness was entirely my own. I looked at Olivia, and she smiled, a knowing, proud smile. She knew I had won the only battle that truly mattered. The legal case was closed. The public drama faded. But for me, the real victory was in the quiet moments. It was the moment I realized I didn't flinch when my phone rang, worried it was them. It was the moment I could enjoy a sunset without feeling the ghost of the lakehouse haunting me. It was in the small, personal milestones that truly mattered. One of those milestones was a visit to my old university. I went to the art department, walked the halls where I used to hide my designs. I looked at the new students, their faces full of hope. I felt a pang of sadness for the person I used to be. The person who was too afraid to be proud of her own work because she was worried about what her family would think. But that sadness was quickly replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. I was no longer that person. The fear was gone. The resentment was gone. The pain, while a part of my story, no longer defined my future. The revenge had done its work. It had given me the strength to heal, the strength to move forward, the strength to be me. The irony of my parents' actions is what truly cemented my peace. They had tried to buy their way into a perfect life. They had used my inheritance to fund their public image. But in doing so, they had given me the one thing they could never have, genuine freedom. The freedom to be authentic. The freedom to be happy. The freedom to be me. My life is not a fairy tale. It's a story of resilience. It's a story of a woman who lost everything, only to find herself. The lakehouse is just a property. The lawsuit is just a case. The revenge is just a chapter. My life, my choices, my peace, that is the final statement. That is the final victory. And that is a milestone no one can ever take away from me. The story of Lauren Martinez and her family is a powerful lesson. A lesson that reminds us that some family ties are meant to be broken. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from the people who are hurting you. That true family isn't about blood. It's about the people who show up for you, who believe in you, and who value you for who you are. Lauren's revenge wasn't about vengeance. It was about justice. It wasn't about tearing her family down. It was about building herself up. She fought for her right to exist, for her right to be valued. And in doing so, she taught us that the most powerful revenge story is not one of destruction, but one of resilience. The family she had was a lie, a beautiful, fragile lie built on a foundation of manipulation and deceit. They tried to buy a perfect life with a stolen house, but they ended up losing everything that truly mattered: their reputation, their honor, and their daughter. But Lauren's story doesn't end there. It begins there. It begins with her alone in her apartment, free from the ghosts of her past. It begins with her finally able to be herself without apology. It begins with her ready to build a life on her own terms, a life of her own design, a life that is finally, truly, and completely her own. The lake house is gone. The parents are facing the consequences of their actions, and Lauren is thriving, She's found a new home in her own courage, a new family in her friends, a new purpose in her work. The revenge story is over. The life story has just begun. Lauren's story is a powerful reminder that family can be a source of both immense love and profound pain. Her journey from victim to victor is a testament to the human spirit's resilience. But more than just a story, it's a guide. It's a series of lessons for anyone who has ever felt betrayed, unheard, or taken advantage of. Let's look at the key takeaways. The first lesson: justice isn't always about vengeance. Lauren fought for justice to reclaim her dignity, not just to hurt her parents. True revenge is found in becoming a better version of yourself, not in tearing others down. It's about winning your life back, not just winning a battle. The second lesson: boundaries are not cruel, they are essential for survival. Lauren had to create an honest distance from her family. You don't owe anyone a relationship just because you share a last name. Protecting your peace is an act of self-love, not an act of cruelty. Your well-being comes first. The third lesson: family is a choice, not just a circumstance. Lauren learned that her real family was not the one she was born into, but the one she built for herself. The friends and colleagues who stood by her were her true support system, built on a foundation of honesty and unconditional love. You can find your tribe. The fourth lesson: resilience is your greatest strength. Lauren's betrayal fueled her success. She transformed her pain into a purpose. Her career, her independence, and her self-worth were built from the ground up because she refused to be broken. You can and will overcome the past and build a stronger future. And the final lesson: peace is the ultimate victory. After all the drama and legal battles, Lauren's greatest win wasn't the house or the money. It was the peace she found within herself. The freedom from fear. The joy of a life truly lived. This is the goal of a true revenge story: a peaceful, authentic, and happy life. If you found strength in Lauren's story, let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts, your struggles, and your victories. Remember to like this video, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply living your best life. Until next time.